Okay, so what we're going to learn in this video is how to thread a needle, how to tie a knot on the needle, as well as do a running stitch, back stitch, and also what I would call a lock stitch to secure the sewing and make sure it doesn't unravel. So you'll be picking up a piece of felt. You'll be picking up a length of thread. That length of thread should be from the center of your chest out to your fingertips when your arm's outstretched. That is a good length to sew with because you're going to be doubling it over, although you won't be sewing with double threads. You're going to need a needle and you'll need something to trim the threads with. So I've chosen yellow felt here with enough of the thread. There's a couple of ways you can thread the needle. One of them is just to poke the thread through the needle. Okay, the other method is to pull the thread on the around the needle and then use your fingertips to enclose the thread and shove that through the needle. And I have no fingernail on one side because all this hand washing from COVID, okay, has actually caused all my nails to break. So I'm just going to stuff that through the needle. We're going to be using some very large-eyed needles, so it'll be easier for you to thread. We're using crochet cotton in here. And I think I'm going to resort to doing it the way I usually do, although since I can't lick my fingers because I don't want COVID in my mouth, I'm just going to put a little bit of something on the end of this thread here to hold it together, and I'm going to do it the other way. But there's a couple of ways of threading the needle. So we're going to do this, and you're going to get in there, please. Okay. Right. Come on. Yeah, you want to make sure you haven't got the thread shredding as you thread the needle. And it's going to do that on me. All right. We might have to use a needle threader today. It worked fine this morning, and right now it's deciding to be really, really picky. Okay. I have a funny feeling I might be using the video from this morning because this thing is giving me so much trouble. Of course, I have no nails left anymore, so that's not helping. All right, so I got this threaded through. And what I want to do is slide the needle down on the thread so that I have my ends. I have a short end here and I have a long end here. I'm not going to knot them together, but I am going to choose the long end here. I'm going to pass it over my finger like this, and I'm going to wind very tightly, and I'm going to twist it like this. I'm not going to let it go. I'm going to get my middle finger nail on here and pull it down. And I'm going to make myself a nice, ugly knot, which you can probably see on the screen there. And that will help me secure this. Now, this loose tail here, you want that loose because as you're working with your thread and using up this piece here, you want to be able to slide this up and still have an optimal length of thread to sew with. Okay? So I'm going to pick up my felt and go in from the back and pull it through. And so there's my knot there. And then I'm going to, because my thread is out the front now, I'm going to go in from the front. And then I'm going to take another stitch. I'm going to try and keep these quite small and fine. And a running stitch, you just go in and out very, very, very regularly. Pull that through, okay? And you make a line of stitches as small, fine, and as regular as possible. If you wind up pulling the needle out on the back, but you want to continue on the front, don't go in from this side, because all you're going to wind up is having something that looks like that on your sewing, and you don't want that. So if your thread is coming out from the back, that's where you need to go in from, is from the back. If your thread is coming out the front, that's where you're going to be going and putting your needle into. So I'm going to do one more stitch, and then I'm going to head to the back of my fabric. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what I call the lock stitch, because if I've taken the time to do a whole pile of embroidery and a lot of work on something, I want to make sure it doesn't unravel. Most videos you see on YouTube that show you how to secure the sewing when you're finishing it will show you how to do this, and they'll show you once. I like you to do it 3 times, okay? So you're going to pass the needle under the threads at the back here, but you should not see the needle on the front. So you're going to take a small bite of the fabric. You're going to pull it through. There's a loop. You're going to go through that loop. Most of the videos show you doing that once. I want you to do it 3 times. So I'm going to take a small bite of fibers at the back, turn it over and check that I see no silver on the front, okay, from the needle. Pull that loop. And you notice how that's twisting over there? You want to make sure that that's straightened out and you don't get other twists in there, because they will create loops on the back. Your sewing at the back should be as neat and tidy as it is on the front. Okay, so I'm going to take a small bite of fibers there, check to make sure I'm not seeing any silver on the front, because I'm using felt here. Something looks like it's going to knot, just loosen it off, back it off, and then pull it through again. So there's my loop, and I go through it. That's 3 times. Okay, so at this point, I can now pull that tight and clip off my stitches. And I've secured my thread. I've done a line of running stitches. Not the straightest in the world, but with practice, okay? So I'm going to tie another knot. So I'm holding that quite tightly, and I'm using my thumb to twist that thread. You can see it forming twists in there. Get your middle finger in there without letting go, and use your middle finger to pull down and tighten that knot up. And I have another ugly knot there. Okay, that's what I want. So I'm going to go in from the back again, and I go in a little bit a ways from where I actually want to begin the line of stitching to start. So it's in a little bit. Pull that through, and for back stitch, which is an outline stitch, I'm going to go back the other direction. I'm right-handed, so I'm going to go to my right, but I'm going to push my needle in towards my left. So you notice where the needle is coming in and out is equidistant from where this thread is coming out. Okay? And so you're going to pull that through. And then you're going to go in right where that last stitch is and do the same thing again. So equidistant, needle in and out, equidistant from where this thread is coming out. Pull it through. If your thread looks like it's twisting, you want to straighten it out before you pull it through, before you get a knot. So go in through the last thread as neatly as possible. Okay, so equidistant again, pull it through, and you can actually turn corners by putting the thread in. Okay, so I'm actually going to start doing a curve here. So you can see how I'm changing direction. And so I'm always going in where that last stitch is coming out of. I'm doing equidistant. If I don't like where the needle's coming out, you notice how I kind of jog it backwards and forwards until I get into the right position where I want it. So you make the needle go where you want. You don't let it choose. It's an inanimate object. You aren't. You have a brain. Okay. Now, if I want to turn a corner, I'm going to make a nice isosceles triangle here. Now, I know you know what those are because you probably had to study them in grade 7. and I know you studied them in grade 6 because that's what I was doing after COVID hit. I got thrown with grade 6 and they were doing geometry. And they were doing isosceles triangles and angles and stuff and what like that. So there is my angle here, and there's my side, and that should be the same measurement there, and whatever this is here, because that will make an isosceles triangle, right? So the one angle that's not like the others is going to be opposite the side that's not like the others, yeah? So I'm going to pull this through. And see how it's starting to form a knot there? We don't want that. So I'm just going to pull my thread back, sort out what my thread is doing, and then continue, okay? And so now I'm going to continue in a straight line to angle it upwards. Remember, equidistant. Pull it through, go back, equidistant, pull it through, go back. So not only have I done a curve here, I also turned a corner. Okay, so you see the corner over there? Okay, so I'm going to go through, back to the last stitch, through the back. And I'm going to end off and secure. So again, I'm going to take a small bite of fibers from the back and check to make sure that my needle is not showing through. I'll pull this through, go through the loop. And I'm going to pull that down a little bit. My thread is starting to get awfully close here to the sewing, so I'm going to pull it up a little bit so I've got a bit of room to work. And I'm going to pull this through, go through the loop. That's 2. I'm going to go through here again. And this time I did it a slightly different way where I just wind the stitches round. And you see I'm starting to have a bit of trouble with knots there. So I would do it the way I showed you with making a loop and going through the loop rather than winding the thread, okay? So you're going to need a length of thread that's as wide as from your thumb to your little finger. If that's what's left on the needle, you can still do those secure stitches and start a new thread. If you have thread shorter than that, you're going to have some problems. Okay? So make sure that you've left long enough thread to make your secure stitches with. Otherwise, what's going to happen is you're going to have about like 1 inch of thread and you're trying to end off. It doesn't work. Okay? So I'm going to clip this thread. And I'm going to demo that knot again for you. So take that tail, wrap it around your finger. It should be middle of your fingertip in the first joint. Twist it off, don't let go of it. Get your middle finger in there with the nail and pull it down. And again, you have a nice, lovely knot there, and I'm going to be ready to sew. Make sure that this tail here is not getting involved. And so I'm ready to go do another line of sewing with something else. So there is your back stitch here. This is your running stitch. And we'll learn some of the stitches once you've mastered this in the following classes before you begin your project. Okay?